How are you doing? Type something in the chat box. Yeah, we had blue skies today. So that was like a gift. Just to have normal weather and blue skies feels like a gift. Empty nester, wonderful. Okay. Yeah, yeah. And, we have a lot of people here in Oregon who are wondering what's the next shoe that's going to drop. Um, Good. This class, I just want to give an overview. We have maybe 10 new people in the class. This class started as moms who saw good progress with homeopathy where they weren't getting progress before, and wanted to learn. And I've been going over this with Bridget a little bit. The line between what is an authority figure with our health versus ourselves is getting fuzzier, if that makes any sense. Like, we want to be our own authority when it comes to our health and our children's health. And parents are so hungry to learn. And mothers specifically, we're inborn with this capacity, this intuitive capacity to know what our children need. We're all gifted with this shamanistic abilities within our imagination, within our connection to our bodies, and within our connection to nature, to actually identify things in nature that will heal us and our families and kids. And this is what makes this homeopathy class quite different, is that I'm not just teaching didactic information. I'm really wanting all of you to connect to that intuitive genius and say, this is the answer for my family. I see online Kim Dinesh, she was working with me really recently, and it was just like boom. Like, as soon as I had Kim close her eyes and as soon as I connected and we had that heart connection, the remedies just kind of show up, and there's thousands of remedies available. So how is it that we can so immediately find something so deeply healing without all this effort, with all this like work and analysis? How can we connect to the love within us that shows us the way? And it's beyond any scientific understanding. It's beyond anything that, we can explain. It's coming into the inexplainable, coming into like the unknowing. Like, I have no idea. And in so many of these cases, we have no idea what to do because they're so complicated. And that's where we are in our level of health as a culture, is it's so complicated because from a homeopathic point of view, so much chronic health is condensed to such a point it hasn't resolved, and we need to unlock those blocks, and homeopathy can do that. So this course began with moms, and I'm structuring this course to be deep, meaning you're really gonna get these deep tools to help you be a homeopath. A lot of people are like, wow, are you teaching me to be a homeopath? And this is for me how I would want to teach homeopathy, because homeopathy it's not just a superficial modality. To understand it takes a level of understanding, and for me, the beauty of it is in the depth of it. It's so deep. And I think some of you guys love that too, right? Is how it shows how one plant can have so much depth, and it's not like it just has these like chemical constituents that work on our blood vessels. It's like it has a whole intelligence that's just so vast and has this capacity to reach us in these ways that are deeply spiritual. You can connect to the sequoia and the orchid and oak trees, and they're absolutely intelligent and wise and have gifts for us. So we did maybe, starting with the class last spring, we did minerals, which was 15 classes. And then we did nosodes and miasms, which was about 15 classes last fall. And then this past spring, we did animal remedies, which was about 10 or 12 classes. We spread it out because we threw in all this COVID related stuff. And then this plants class. So plants make up like 50% of homeopathic remedies. So I have this plants classes going possibly through next spring, right? Because there's a lot of plant remedies, and I love you guys. I just want to spend time with you. So this will keep going for a while, the plants, so we can get cozy with the plants. Let's see. Why are we studying homeopathy in families? Okay, so traditionally, and because I have some new people in this class, I am going to be teaching some concepts fresh that some of you already know, but hopefully is important review. Traditionally in homeopathy, you know, remedies are just organized alphabetically. You've got a materia medica that's just A through Z homeopathy, you know, and lac caninum is next to latrodec, like all of these remedies, and they weren't, there were some concepts of grouping remedies by their family of like spiders and trees and conifers, but it wasn't really pulled together in a way that it was very coherent until some more contemporary homeopaths who are still alive and in the 80s and the 90s and early 2000s that really put what's considered contemporary homeopathy out there. So what I'm teaching you is contemporary too. It is like the cutting edge, I hope to be. And really, I believe that the next cutting edge is intuition. You know, it's the feminine. It's coming into like, let's get out of this German, Western scientific mindset of like having to have an explanation for everything and coming into like, I am a wise woman who just knows in my body what's right. You know, this is what we are missing. This is the reconnection with our bodies, our femininity, and the planet. So, yeah, so we've got the intuition piece, but there's still so much to learn. And there's still like, we're just so curious and there's so much amazing knowledge. And so I'm creating maps for you guys. Originally, this class was also based on just a book of charts that I made called the Book of Life. And this is just charts of all different families of remedies and became my little textbook. And Bridget, who's a book author, is helping me put that into book form. But these charts of remedies categorized by family is just, they're maps for your intuition. So you can imagine like your intuition is like a bird and it's looking top down at all of these possibilities. And this bird has this GPS called love and intuition, and it's trying to find its way to land on what's right. What does my instinct, what does my intuition tell me what's right? Right? So that is... Anything else you guys want to share what makes this class unique? I want this class, let's talk about goals for the class. So what are your guys' goals? What do you want to learn? Anything? To become a better practitioner, plants are overwhelming. I don't know how to narrow them down. how to pick one plant remedy over another. Right. I'm just gonna close my door. How to Navigate Schulten's Plants book. Oh, some of you got that one. I don't even know that yet, but I'll guide you to what I know. To learn when to select a plant remedy and then narrow down the selection, there's so many. The power of plants. I've noticed as a mom, I'm very intuitive with my own kids. I'm nervous integrating this with patients and to gain insights. I'm not sure what this would look like, but that's what I hear. Yeah, applying that intuition in our daily life and all around us. You know, Lindsay, for me, it was the opposite. I applied intuition with my patients and then started applying it in my life. But, you know, even a naturopathic education is very mentalized and very still Western in its approach. And I would prescribe a really good plant remedy to a mom, and the mom's like, oh, I muscle test, can I dose the way that I want to? And I'm like, okay, sure. And she'd come back and her kid would just make all this progress because she muscle tested the remedy. And in the time that I've been practicing over the last 10, 12 years, I feel like muscle testing and pendulum testing and intuition has become a lot more popular because I'm seeing more and more people who are like, yeah, I do that. Or maybe they're just coming to me. But I personally feel like we're more likely to mess up with people the more that we're inserting our ego and thinking this is what needs to happen and not being really receptive to that connection. You know, the connection that I feel when I'm intuitive with somebody is a heart connection. And I feel like what feels right, just what feels right. You know, and the real basis of starting in that is sometimes I'll just have people hold something to their heart and you sway into it and that feels yes, or do you sway away from it and you contract and you feel this doesn't feel right. My body feels contracted with this decision. You know, it doesn't feel right. You know, if, you know, every doctor had that sensibility of what instinctively feels right versus contracting, this doesn't feel right, we'd probably have a lot less problems. How to really trust my intuition to treat my kids. Yeah, and intuition is something that we just slowly build up. It's almost as if healing, it has the purpose of bringing us to ourselves to trust our intuition. You know, we have intuition teachers in this class. Mallory, right there, is an intuition teacher. There's so many resources. And what makes this class really unique is that this class is an amazing community and resource. And in these times of insanity out there, this community is a really wonderful, loving, supportive group of women with so much information and skills gleaned from working with families and their own families, and powerful. So we're definitely all here to support each other. I want us to have good community. I want you guys to feel this real deep connection with plants. Plants is a little different from animals. The animals are, you know, exciting and fun and young and have that behavior and you can really like get them. And the plants, instead of like an animal comes to you, the plants, you have to go to them. Okay, it's like you have to say, make that extra effort. They're just waiting, they're chill, they're like, you want to meet me, come to me. So we have to say, I want to come to you, and you will understand. You know, it's that relationship. So it takes a little bit more sensitivity, and we'll get into that a little bit more. I also have a goal is I want you guys all to just grow as people. You know, this is a community of learning homeopathy, but it's also like healing is evolution. Healing is self-evolution. Healing is realizing that we're so much more powerful than we ever believed we were, and creating our lives in co-creating, in, you know, intending outcomes that are just right. So we'll get to that. All right. So plants, you know, I've had a hard time with plants as well, knowing that, you know, they're super complicated. It's not so cut and dry. When we studied the minerals, we had this periodic table of elements that was just very systematic, and I taught you a system on how to prescribe them based on this system. Easy. Animals you can get. Plants, it's more like ambiguous, right? And we have to kind of there's a yin to the plant world. There's this kind of, I'm so sensitive, and if you imagine you're a plant, you're existing based on your sensitivity to your environment. A plant exists and survives based on, I can receive sunlight, I know I have this much space available to grow. That plant is over there. They have this sensitive connectivity to their environment. There's a sensitivity, and then they react to their environment. They know when to close up. They know when to contain themselves. So there's this wonderful, like, little story. Let me just open up my... And I actually put this in the book as the beginning part of my plants chapter. And it's in the notes that I gave to you. But according to Cherokee lore, animals could talk and humans lived with animals in harmony. In time, animals complained they were being killed for their fur without blessing. Insects complained they were being stepped on. Animals felt like humans were really disrespectful and would outnumber them and kill them and hunt them down. So the animals declared war, and they came up with diseases. And it's interesting, right? Because a lot of disease is animal vector, right? All those mosquitoes, and they're just like, you humans, we gotta get you. And it's like war, it's attack. And fortunately, the plants were listening, and they took pity on the humans. And for every disease invented by animals, the plants designed an antidote. The plants made a covenant that any sincere plea for help would be answered by a necessary medicinal plant. And isn't this the case? Plants are medicine, right? Homeopathic remedies are so awesome because it allows us to access the full signature of that plant and really understanding it on all levels. Traditional medicine, Native Americans, they connected to plants through their heart, through their vision quests, you know, and understood them in this way as well. So that's what I want from you. I want you guys all to be like Native American shamans, connecting to the plants. Open this. You can see it. Have you guys seen this? A little 2000 BC. Here, eat this root. 1000 AD. That root is heathen. Here, say a prayer. 1865. That prayer is superstition. Here, drink a potion. 1935. That potion is snake oil. Here, swallow a pill. 1975. That pill's ineffective. Here, take an antibiotic. Steroid, whatever. 2000. That steroid, antibiotic, pharmaceuticals, poison. Here, eat this root. So that's where we're at, you know, in a way. Like, a lot of us recognize that that we actually haven't come that far in medicine. We think modern medicine is so great, but if it kills as many people as it does, you know, through side effects, is it really so modern? Can we be more modern by integrating a more holistic connection to nature? Remembering also that, you know, a lot of our pharmaceuticals come from plants, that plants truly are medicine. Antibiotics, you know, penicillinum is a fungus. Aspirin is salicylic acid. So the plants are there for us and for our pain and our ailments. You have an ailment, there's a plant for it. You better believe it. You know, there's how many thousands of plants, you know, on this planet. There is one for you. So understanding these plants is really important. Before I really launch into the class lecture notes, and I have a lot of concepts to cover, I want to do a meditation. And you guys all know that I like doing meditations because meditations helps us get out of our head and really connect. And so I'm going to do a meditation to bring us into the plant world and the plant kingdom, and just see if maybe a plant shows up for you. And this is something we can kind of do on a regular basis. And if you guys have ideas for how to connect to the plants better, we can kind of integrate them as we go along. So let's all close our eyes. And take a deep breath in and out. And just connect to each other over this Zoom connection. Being grateful for this opportunity to be with each other in these times, to share wisdom. And just relax. Just take a deep breath in and out. And just let go of your day, the stress, whatever. And just come into your heart, come into your heart chakra, your belly. And I want you to picture, with your eyes closed, I want you to really envision a pristine and peaceful place in nature. Perhaps it's somewhere you've been or you've never been. And I want you to picture the sky, the weather, clouds, and then picture the ground, the plants you're around. And I want you to picture walking in this place, hearing the sound of your footsteps. And notice the greenery. Notice what is bridging the sky and the earth beneath your feet. I want you to notice plants, trees, scrub, flowers, weeds, grasses. And you can smell the air in this place that you're at. And I want you to see that something stands out to you, a plant stands out to you, and you walk towards it. This plant is calling to you and you walk towards it. It's got this magnetic quality that draws you to it. And you just look at it and you look at its quality. And it's so still and peaceful. And you touch it. And your heart connects to it. And you might ask to even pick a piece of it, rub it between your fingers, smell it, and hold it to your heart. And just ask that plant, are you medicine for me? What do you have to teach me? And feeling that connection with plants, that union Holding on to that connection with this plant. I want you just to see all the plant kingdom, all the green around you, and just ask the plants to be our teacher in this course, to teach us, to guide us, to show us the magic that we've been surrounded by. Maybe we've been ignoring it. Maybe we just look past it. Imagine sitting outside and just receiving the peace, and the union that we have with nature. And just taking a deep breath in and out. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Anything? Did you guys? Any plant come up? Holly, blackberry, chamomile. Nice. Nettle. Wow, cool. Fern. Moonflower. Fiddlehead fern. Rosemary, asters, lilac, daisy. Ah, gosh. It's great. Yeah. Ivy, ferns, mushrooms. Club moss. That's awesome. A sensitive fern. A lot of ferns. Great. Blue flower with a yellow stripe. Sometimes we can look it up, like look up Google blue flower with a yellow stripe, but sometimes I do that. I'm like, sometimes people are in this meditation. And for those of you who are new to this class, that kind of meditation is what I do with patients. You know, you just have people go inside and see what they see. But if you have people go into their body where the pain is, that's the key. Mountain laurel, honeysuckle. Honeysuckle came to me recently. Yeah, and what's so cool about honeysuckle, it came to me for a remedy that I needed because it's for releasing nostalgia. It's for letting go of like what we're holding on to from the past, and we've had to let go of a lot of the past go. And then the next day, my mom sent me an article that Japanese honeysuckle is being used for treating COVID. Awesome, great. So hold on to that plant. Because it's not like you just thought of that plant for no reason. That plant may have wonderful depth and capacity for working with you. You know, we have these animal friends, but we have plant friends too. You know, so honeysuckle treats encephalitis. Amazing. And it smells so good. Okay. Go back to the notes. So a lot of you know these herbs from herbal medicine. How many of you have done any significant study of herbal medicine? Because that will apply. That will still be, understandable within the realm of homeopathy to a point. Okay, so most homeopathic remedies that have provings come from this kind of German, European-based homeopathy background. There isn't provings on Chinese herbs and Ayurvedic herbs, unfortunately, but it's starting now and some of it's available. But for the most part, homeopathic wormwood, senna, is used for worms in it as an herb and also in homeopathy. How does homeopathy differ is huge, right? I think we all understand that homeopathics treat the more energetic component of that, using the energetic component of that plant to treat the energetic component of the person, and shows what that picture would look like that needs to be treated. Sometimes do we need to use herbs? Yes. Most cases that come to me that are complex, that are PANDAS, PANS, ASD, Lyme disease, whatever, their bodies are so rattled that even herbs knock them off course. And have any of you experienced that? Where your body, you just get a headache as soon as you take some herbs. Yeah. Homeopathy is more gentle than herbals. Absolutely. There are herbalists who drop dose herbs. You know, Matthew Wood is known for, and a lot of old eclectic naturopathic medicine was the drop dosing of herbs, or literally you take an herb and rub a couple drops just on your wrist to get the dose of it. Herbs for sure made my son worse. Couldn't handle even a couple drops when he was very sick. Herbs are too strong, tend to be too strong for kids. And they don't taste good, right? It's just, it's hard to get herbs into a kid's mouth, even with as much glycerite. And glycerites are disgusting. I mean, like a little homeopathic sucrose pellet is a little sugar, but this whole load of like glycerite sugar in the mouth is strong. So, what you know from herbal medicine will apply, and often in materia medica, Western herbal terms are used, you know, and there was a time when, you know, herbalists and naturopaths and eclectic, you know, and homeopaths, there was this real melding of medicine that doesn't exist as much anymore. So we know already, for the most part, that's why we ended up with homeopathy, adding back in gemmos in small amounts. That's right. So what it tends to be is there's this trajectory where it's like the case is so like tight energetically, like where like very little things can kind of break into what to resonating with the case and opening it up. It's almost like the body contracts into like, don't let any more in, don't give me any more supplements and herbs. I only can handle this one thing. And it's this like one homeopathic remedy. And then as you start to release the case and create more freedom and flexibility within their energy system, you can add in supplements and herbs in a way that's building up, that's supportive. Because mentally, emotionally, physically, there's more adaptability and flexibility in the system. Right, like I couldn't, I mean, in naturopathic school, I think I was toxic enough at that point. I couldn't even experiment with the herbs that they were giving to me. They'd give me a headache right away, or I'd prove them. And homeopathy was just completely what I need. But if I take herbs now, it's fine. I don't have that level of reaction. So the more dilute, the more energetic, the more vibrational, right? And so starting from kind of more material, you've got kind of pharmaceutical grade extraction of medicine, and then essential oils, and then dry caps and syrups and tinctures and teas, and then undas, and then we move into like low potency homeopathics, higher potency homeopathics, and flower essences. Sometimes we need a material dose of something. You're in an emergency situation and someone's bleeding out, and you just need, you could take a bunch of capsicum and pack it on that wound, and it will cause the platelets to clump up, you know, and you just literally need that quality in that emergency. Or, you know, you need a steroid or some sort of, if you have anaphylaxis, you know, you need some sort of a steroid shot, right? And so you need an emergency medicine, sometimes these more material forms of medicine. When there's real deficiency in a case, you know, a person is just depleted, it can really help to give herbs, you know, hormone depletion like maca, you know, or red clover, and things that are just supportive to our overall on a physical level of our body and our minerals. And sometimes we want a quality of the herb, like it's like mucilaginous, so we take slippery elm because it soothes, or aloe we put on burns because it's cooling and soothing. And cell salts are somewhere in this low potency homeopathic remedy range, where it can give you some of that material dosage. I believe, and this is somewhat theoretical, that anything over a 6C is really, there's 6C or 12C, there isn't anything that can be found that's material, but still within a 6C, you can still find material doses of whatever that thing is. And then the X potencies, you can still find the material components of that medicine in it. Okay. I'm not going to go over. These are just basic like herbalism terms. We don't really have to go through this. Okay. So this is a real key in understanding this class altogether and concepts is understanding when am I going to need to give a plant remedy versus an animal remedy versus a mineral remedy versus a nosode. And this is something I could go over and over again, and it's something we can hear. And it isn't super black and white, like most cases will do well with a plant, animal, and a mineral and a nosode, especially complex cases. I had a super complex case just a couple weeks ago of a kid whose father has cancer, mother is bedridden with like Lyme disease, and the child is like pandas, right? And I'm just feeling into the case, and the child is protected. The child is like, the parents are blocking all of their stuff from impacting their child. And what I'm hearing is that the parents need treatment. They want all the treatment. And that child is like completely surrounded by light and needs very little. And so I just tell the mom that, and she's like, okay, I feel that way too. Let's just work on me. And I'm like, great, because it's you that needs to be worked on. And that's true for so many kids' cases. It's really the parents that need a lot of the healing. And we can kind of help the kid and support the kid with a gentle homeopathic remedy. In that case, I just gave the kid phosphorus, right? Whereas like if I was just imagining the amount and load of, having a father with cancer and a mother who's been bedridden for years, he's got a lot, but his body intuitively didn't ask for a lot. So how do we differentiate? So some of you guys who have taken my classes before, do you have a sense of what a mineral person would look like? And when they come to see you or you're engaging with them, the mineral person is structured, tends to be pretty linear, tends to be, kind of like it's all about like them and how they relate to the world is in terms of like my stuff, my ownership, my value, who I am. There's like this there may be a rigidity to it. I had recommended a couple books, but of all books, this book, there's the Book of Life, but then the Sankaran Schema, 2005, 2007, whatever. I think it's even sold on Amazon. It's so great for just, do the people who have this book, do you guys like it? Or does it feel like too simplistic to you? Because it has these concepts really well written at the very beginning. An animal case or animal cases, what they are like, mineral cases are, people are to the point, they're systematic, they're organized. The issue is breakdown of structure. The issue is their financial situation, their relationship situation on some level in terms of how it affects them. And then the plant kingdom is a little bit maybe more obvious because it has to do with issues of survival. So it's he aggressed me, he attacked me, I felt lower than, and I needed to sexually attract this person to get, what I need, and that kind of a thing. The animals, issues of survival, strong versus weak, predator versus prey, attention seeking, animated. And, the Scholten says this in his book, and I really realized it. The minerals and the animals have a certain more yang quality, like they're a more almost masculine quality where they're out there and they're directed and they're trying to get things done in the world. Whereas the plants are just, they're just there. They're waiting for the world to come to them. It's all about sensitivity. And in that way, it's a more feminine quality. How many of you are just, you know, you're sensitive to the people around you. You're sensitive to what they, how you're concerned about, you know, how they think of you or them being happy. That's a plant quality in general, you know, wanting to adapt yourself to other people, to, you know, to being sensitive in your feelings and your emotions in general. This is a plant thing. And in general, women are really planty. We have this like soft, flowing, adaptable, sensitive, emotional natures. Not all women. And I'll show you a case of a woman who is really not this way. But and guys can be that way. I'm kind of talking about more like archetypal masculine and feminine qualities. But plant is, I'm so sensitive to this. This hurts. You know, I can't bear this. You know, there's a quality to the case that's more disorganized and all about the feelings. Sankran will say somebody who needs a plant remedy will even show up with like patterned clothes, and Schulten says they're vague and rounded. The plant kingdom's more feminine and yin. The animal and mineral kingdoms are more yang, active, forceful, like this is my purpose. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I want. Plant cases are adapting, sensitive, taking into the viewpoint of everybody around them, fitting in with others, whereas mineral patients are concerned with their own problem, and if their sensitivity is there, they're sensitive to how other people affect their problem, right? You know, the mineral kingdom is very almost European. At some point I heard a homeopath saying like Europe is all about the mineral kingdom, whereas other places like South America is super animal, you know, and but then there's this feminine quality that's kind of omnipresent in the plant kingdom. Yeah, minerals are concerned about facts. Animals are concerned about hierarchy and competition. And this is something that that you can kind of pick up on when you have people meditate and close their eyes and tell you what's going on, or just in their case and just how they present to you. You know, is it somebody who's just really like on time and they have like really organized notes, or is this somebody who's like trying to feel you out and get into your face and is really animated, you know, and that's a little more like animal animated, or are they just really like crunched up and like, I've got this tummy pain and sensitive, and you know, in kids' cases, if a child is in pain, that's the first thing we want to work on, because the pain is the loudest voice happening in their body, the loudest expression showing you what needs to be fixed. I don't care, you know, like, sure, you know, if you know, there's all sorts of different types of pain that the body can have, you know, and there can be like subtle headaches here and there, but if the crux of the case is like this excruciating GI that this autistic kid has, you've got to go there, because that's showing you like where in the body something is really going on. Oftentimes in kids, it's headaches. Like they're so inflamed that they're just, it's, to me, my compassion is just so much for these kids who are in pain. For so many kids, pain is their daily reality. And I find that to be tragic. This should not be the case. But for so many kids, they've normalized pain to such a degree, and we have to go in and feel it. And the pattern, the reflexive pattern in our culture is to suppress and avoid pain. To like No, it doesn't exist. And what we do to heal pain is we go into it. We say, yes, this exists. This is there. Let's experience it. Let's feel it and describe it to every detail that you can. You know, how do you do that with a child who's nonverbal? Is we have the mom imagine what it's like to be that child. And it's unbelievable. And how many of you have imagined what it's like to be your kid and are surprised at what comes up? You're like, oh, I didn't realize my kid felt this way, and now I do. And we're in our daily life and we're just going 9 to 5 and like, we're not realizing, you know, and that's using our sensitivity as a mom to really feel into how a kid feels, you know. And at some level, when you can really connect to intuition in a really powerful way, you can read children and energy of people really accurately. So here's some examples. So I'm going to give you an example of a plant sensation versus animal and mineral. Okay, so this is an autistic girl, and her main issue was GI and sensory issues, no eye contact, diagnosed at 2 years old, going through all these services, but at 7 years old, having diarrhea, yellow stool, black stools, all sorts of diet stuff, not helping, always feeling like she has to throw up. But she would say, I have to throw down because the food goes down when you throw up. And so this plant, in this intake, there's so many sensations described. I asked the mom to imagine what it's like to be the child. And it's just like this long, almost disorganized, you know, description of all of this stuff. And it's challenging, right? Like, how do you then find a plant from that? What I'm explaining today is not to tell you how I found that plant, but just that this was a plant, okay? So this is like, this hurts, I'm uncomfortable, it's twisting, you know, it's too hot, it's too cold, it's stuck, my head hurts, you know, I can't get comfortable, I'm scared, mommy, make this go away, my head hurts. You know, this is tied, it's a knot, and I kick because I want to release the knot, and then it cramps. And essentially, the mom is describing what the intestines feel like. They're so stuck, you know, and this girl's poops are so irregular and gushy, and she's going to the bathroom all the time. And so do you guys kind of get this planty quality to this? And so if a child is uncomfortable, go into that discomfort and imagine what it's like. If you are uncomfortable, do it. You've got your period, you've got cramps, you've got a headache. Instead of reaching for the ibuprofen, close your eyes, feel into that headache. Feel into that, like, whatever it is. And like, you know, you might just hardly feel anything. Literally imagine the tissues. Picture the tissues, the quality of the fascia and the blood vessels. What does this look like? What does this feel like? What am I sensing here? You know, and then just, you know, feel in with your heart, like you're holding your body, or you're connecting to your kid, like you're really connecting to a baby that you love, and you're feeling it. And does this remind me of a plant? What shows up? Do I picture anything here? You know, and see. You know, one time I was having like a kidney issue, and I went in and I closed my eyes, and I could see these little scrub brushes wanting to go through my kidney. And I was like, what are these scrub brushes? And I realized I was picturing equisetum. And, you know, in herbalism, there's a doctrine of signatures. So the plant looks like a little scrub brush. It's like a little bamboo looking guy with a little scrub brushes, and it's a plant for cleaning out the kidney. So something like that, you know, this is something that you can do. I have a friend who had ankylosing spondylitis, and we went into his back and we saw bamboo. What does bamboo treat? Ankylosing spondylitis, you know, a rigid back. So, there is that doctrine of signatures as well, which means that the plant looks like what it's going to treat. There's the lily that looks like it looks like a tongue. It's called, in India, it's called vacha, which means talk or speak. And in India, they give it to children to get their talking going, to develop the speech. And I found this remedy, the homeopathic remedy, and I gave it to a family, and it helped their kids. You know, it helped them with speech. It was not a panacea for all kids, but you know, we can understand plants in that way too. So this case is a planty case. You know, in some ways we can get really analytical. It's like her body feels like a trap. Oh, traps sound like animals, you know, and if we explore a case and we keep digging, we can end up, you know, I used to take these long cases and have pages and pages of notes. If you read in the notes, you see the animal qualities and the plant qualities and going in. But I just want to differentiate to you. In this case, I gave podophyllum, the mayapple, which is for gushing stools, or like kind of like ulcerative colitis, or when there's like a blockage, then it gushes out. It's kind of like aloe. And it was a powerful remedy for her. It normalized her stools, which for a child, having spent their whole life in pain from GI, you find that right homeopathic remedy for their pain, you change their life. I mean, in some of these kids' cases, it doesn't matter to me to recover them or get them nonverbal. I just want them to not be in constant chronic pain. I mean, that's just horrible. Okay, here's a snake case. This was actually also an autistic adult. I was 28. And I met with him in person, and I had him close his eyes and just tell me what he saw. And he saw, I feel tightness, I feel clenched, I see darkness, I'm in the dark. And I'm like, what do you see in the dark? Because darkness is always a great entryway into the subconscious, because essentially we want the subconscious to tell us its truth. Because if we can say, aha, I see what's in your subconscious, and this is the pattern that's there, and you give the homeopathic remedy, it's just like this big release. Oh, the thrashing and the trapped, you mean, so I am to look to see what is coming up the most. Yeah, you know, this is a kind of a generalized feeling, but if you get Sangha schema, and you will realize that there is a quality. So say, you know, you're seeing lots of families. A lot of the kids of like engineers, you know, engineers come in and they're really like proper, or they're like computer software people or programmers, and they're really organized, and they're sitting with their kid and they're giving you like XYZ, you know, and you're like, oh my God, this is like so mineral, you know. Or the kid comes in and they're like running around, hiding, crouching down, and you're watching that kid, and then they're all about, and if your intuition is saying, guide me, I have no idea, show me what this kid needs, I need a sign, and that little kid is like woof 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 and has like a pet doggy and he keeps shoving it into your face, do you ignore it, or can you pay attention to it? I pay attention to that. You know, sometimes I'm online and then the kid comes online and they know that I'm trying to figure them out, and they show me their stuffy, that's something, or there's just something in the screen or the photo that's just, you know, the kid will be with a tree or hanging from a tree or something like that. I don't discount anything, because in a way, the world of intuition speaks to us in a language that is holistic and inclusive. Like opening yourself up to all those signs is fine, you know? And then we connect to our hearts and say, is this real? Does this kid really need the remedy from a dog? And then you can look it up and you can back up your intuition with an analytical perspective that reads about laccaninum. You're like, wow, these symptoms really match. Okay, my left brain and right brain match up. I'm gonna try it. So, yeah, you know, you can't really kind of get too stuck in the trees. You have to see the forest when looking at these cases. But in a case like this, it's like this guy sees a snake. The snake is outside the cage. It wants to get me. I'm really scared. What kind? And then you have to be like, what kind of snake is it? And it's like, I don't know, And so I'm like, okay, this kid clearly needs a snake. I'm gonna go to the snakes, and either I'll look and read about them or a muscle test, and see, okay, this kid, and that snake just unlocks other things, and then he needs an animal after that. In a lot of chronic cases, it kind of starts with the nozos. It's almost like that child, the picture that they're showing you is the intelligence of a disease. This stimming, the lining up, it could literally be the intelligence of strep itself or candida. And then you kind of clear that up. And then they're like in survival mind because they've been inflamed for so long. It's literally their reptilian brain is like, and you give them an animal remedy. And then their like gut is all messed up. And then you give them some plant remedies. And then as they start to get better, they become more simple and less complex. And then maybe a mineral remedy will come in and be more of like a constitutional for them. That's possible generalization for a lot of cases that I see. Okay, so here's a mineral case. This was a mom who was really, kind of very like proper in the case, very mental, very critical, very like non-emotional. And she says, I've had to train myself not to be critical of anyone. And so see in this case, the amount of time she uses I, or like, I have this, or this is my thing, and it's almost like it's like their ego and how it relates in this world of other things and how it fits in. And she doesn't talk about pain sensations and stuff. She doesn't have this animal quality to her. I've had to train myself not to be critical. I train myself to see the good parts of a person. I zero on the negative. I'm self-conscious, and at another level, I don't care. I don't work hard at relationships. I won't do Facebook. I don't let people in. I don't share my emotions, right? I have a lot of cavities. I have a lot of gray hair. I have plantar fasciitis. So there was this really like terse listing out. This is a little bit more extreme, but I just want to show this because it's very mineral. My parents and sister miss a relationship, but I'm not there. Relationships with men, I don't see the person in the humanity in the male. It's mildly combative. We are a family of shredders. We shred everything. So it's like not sentimental either. I can't process words with that emotion. I can't reconcile emotions. My fear is I will do the same to my child and the negative thing takes over. So this was a woman, whose child had kind of this Asperger's-y, like couldn't connect to people. And you wonder why, right? Like she has an inability to emotionally connect to people. We can't accept love unconditionally. We're always trying to improve someone. I have these defense mechanisms that just come out. If she was like, I have these defense mechanisms that come out and I just go, and I attack, I'd be like, oh, wow, maybe there's like an animal there too. But it didn't. She was just like, I'm unable to deal. I'm great in novel situations. People always want to hang out with me. People think I have more money than I do have. She had a hypothyroid problem, which led to low energy, and I gave her natrium fluoridum, sodium fluoride. Fluoride is for hardness. She was a hard, unemotional, cut-off person who was lonely and couldn't form relationships, and it had a huge impact, right? And it affected her on all levels, but that was a mineral. So do you guys get plant, animal, mineral? We'll kind of keep getting into the plants more. Okay. There's so many ways of integrating and learning about the plants. And I don't want to overwhelm you, but I'm going to keep going. So for new people in the class, ask questions, you know, or if you feel like I'm covering too much that you've already learned, let me know too. A plant remedy will predominate often when I feel like there's like a certain part of the body that is having a problem, a certain system of the body that we know is problematic. So that might be coming from a more naturopathic perspective, but you know, there is a way for us to understand plants as having organ specificity. Definitely, I start thinking about plants when people start describing all these sensations of what's going on in their body. And just generally, most chronic cases just need plants at some point. You know, the remedy Lycopodium, which I'll cover today, everybody does well with this remedy. Most women, you know, at some point do well with a plant remedy that addresses hormones. Hormones is kind of our sensitivity and our reactivity to the world. Questions to ask to find a plant remedy, and I've kind of covered this. Go into detail of the pain. Give adjectives for it. What do you see? Do you see pictures of it? You know, and sometimes somebody will be like, I see something really metallic, and that will guide you maybe to a mineral instead. But there are plant remedies that have specific, like a band-like sensation. Is anacardium, has this like band-like sensation around things. You know, we can demonstrate the sensation going into the body at some point. You know, if you picture, how's your kid when they're stressed up? What do they do? What do they do with their body? What does it remind you of? You know, I have a friend that recently moved states and relocated her child. And her child was just kind of all over the place. And she saw her as a tumbleweed. And we didn't have that remedy, but she ended up making it and giving it to her daughter and like discovering all these amazing qualities about that plant, tumbleweed. Exactly, like a hunched over child, like when sad, it's just like wilting, you know, and it's like, okay, well then what are they doing with themselves? And then you have a million plants you can give. Like, how do you hone in on that? We hone in with intuition, and then we're going to hone in with some of the tools that I'm going to give you here. So when they're feeling their worst, they're hunched over, okay? What are they really feeling? Like cramped, contracted, they feel numb, they feel sharp, they feel stabbing. Those are all different plant families. And then imagine what's the opposite like, because the plant kingdom has this quality where the plants have this like one sensation and how they compensate for it, right? So there's a sensation of being kind of oversensitive to pain in the environment and then compensating by creating a state of numbness. And that's the plant family of poppies, right? So what's the pain like? And what would the opposite be? And this is always like a really wonderful question to ask, is to understand the polarity of how a child is presenting. And then, are you drawn to a plant? Like just the meditation we did. Okay, wow, I just saw chamomile or elderberry. Like, what is it about this plant that's going to connect to me today or with what I have? And just, you know, a lot of people, sometimes I've done sensation process with people and people really connect to what ethnically they have a connection with. Like Italian people will have all of this connection to oregano and thyme and the essential oils for like healing up stuff in their body. And people from India are really connected to like neem and different things. So sometimes that comes up. It's almost like your body already has a relationship with that plant and it wants to show that to you and use it. Or maybe it's in your backyard. Sometimes I prescribe something, they're like, oh my God, I have those plants in my garden right now. You know, you can see what just randomly grows around you and just be like, is that plant wanting to help me, to heal me? You know, is that dandelion there for me? Is that mullein there for me? So ways that we can kind of understand, we can understand plants for, we can just look up various indications. We can look through a book, arthritis, you know, X, Y, and Z plants. We can look up, I'll show you some of this, plants for various organ systems, plant for the sensation of that plant according to the miasm. So I'm going to cover this in a little bit more. And then plants for stage of evolution. So this book, some of you have gotten in, but you don't have to. It's kind of expensive and you might have to get it from Germany. But this, in the beginning of the book, it has this table here, and it's literally a evolutionary table of plants where at the bottom is mosses, and then you go into the ferns and then the pine trees and then the flowering plants. And that is how plants evolved over millennia. And he's organized, Scholten has organized plants according to their level of evolution. So the beginning of the book is like mosses, and it's all for these like simplistic states, you know, of that need to be resolved. And then in the back of the book are these like more complex plants. This book is genius. I am not going to teach you this style of finding a plant because it's so complicated. And I have gone to his workshops. And what I like to use this book for, and why I gave you a handout from this book, is that he breaks down and describes the plant families in really nice, succinct descriptors. So, right, like, okay, so, you know, he would describe like the issues of algae as, you know, do I exist in this world or do I not exist? You know, Lycopodium is a moss. It's this, and we're going to talk about it today, but it's this, you know, this ancient plant that reduced in size through evolution. And it's this plant that we could all need at our core, you know, for issues of confidence. Yeah. The fungi, and a lot of us are very fungi related in terms of sensitivity to fungus, into the mushrooms. The fungi are considered the most advanced plants. In a way, they're like minerals, animals. They have an intelligence that's animal-like. But they're not actually quite well understood in homeopathy, and they're still being understood more in time. What I do find helpful is the sensations. So the feelings in the body. So in this book, Sankaran Schema, on these pages 14 through 20, it describes different plant families and the sensations in those families. So like the Anacardium family, rustox, which you know is poison ivy, all you have to do is kind of, you can imagine the plant itself. Poison ivy wraps itself around a tree and then constricts it and kills it, right? And so it's a feeling of constriction, like you're being wrapped and held in a place and you can't move and you want to break out of it, right? And that's the feeling. Rustox is for the joints. We feel this constriction around our joints and we need to move to break through it, okay? So each plant family has a sensation and has themes according to that plant family. And this is what I'm going to teach you, is just the themes and sensations around each plant family and the plants that are in them. Okay. So for example, the opium family is the sensations of pain and numbness. You could be like really emotionally numb, but on some level, super sensitive to the pain in the world. And, you know, an opium family remedy will be helpful. You could feel really dragged down and heavy in your body, but you really want to be in your imagination. Then you could need a remedy from a tree. So, so that kind of sensation and compensation for it is described by Sankaran, and I'm going to be teaching this to you. That said, Sankaran's plant classifications are not fully accurate. So he came out with this in the early 2000s, and homeopaths, as anal as they all are, were like, this is not accurate. Like some of these plants, you know, and botanists are crazy and they just reclassify plants all the time. And so it's going to be mostly according to Sankaran. And then I'm also going to draw on this book because it's more accurate. So there's that, you know, you're like, oh my gosh, like, you know, this is what the sensation this person is feeling. Oh, this is a lot like this plant family. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna understand this now. So that can really help. That said, the sensations can be confusing, you know, and for me, intuition tops everything. I'm teaching you all these analytical tools, but if your intuition is like, oh man, like I'm really being guided, this remedy feels really important here, you know, pay attention to that. I will, you know, here's this scanned picture right here is taken from the Sankaran schema. And what he's done is he's taken plant families, which are on the left, and organized them according to the miasms. And I've just sometimes just go through and I muscle test any of these plant families. Are they needed? Which plant family is most important here? And then which miasm, you know? And so like when we can pendulum test or muscle test, we can use a chart. I always like to have that analytical understanding. If I intuit something first, the analytical understanding of like why that is, you know, I'm like, oh gosh, this person really muscle tested for a really like leprous miasm plant. Why is that? We're not going to talk about the miasms today because it's too big of a discussion. But the miasms are a useful categorizational tool. And that's what homeopathy is about, categorizational tools, because there's so many remedies out there. How do you choose? These are does anybody want to say what a miasm is in, can you quickly define a miasm? Yes, no. You can write no. It's hard for me, like genetic predisposition. Yeah, so it's inherited pattern of disease, ancestral tendency towards a certain group. Great. So we're all kind of downstream our parents, and our children are downstream us. And this is really important in homeopathy to understand that we're healing a whole group of people. When we're healing a child, we're healing their parents. When we're healing the parents, we're healing the grandparents, right? And so this is why homeopathy is so deep, because we can go back generations and heal stuff that happened generations ago. You know, there's somebody in my class, we were healing like genocide that happened like in the Mongolian time in her family that showed up in her child, you know. It's totally possible. That said, so it's this inherited tendency, and it's this, how does the body react to stress in your survival mechanism? Like, is your tendency in your family in responding to stressful situations always an emergency? Because there's some people where their main thing is to go to the ER. They deal with all their stress, like panic, ER, you know. There's some people where they deal with their stress and their problem by covering it up. Nope, sorry, that's not a problem. I'm just gonna sweep it under the rug. I'm gonna hide it from you. Nope, I don't have an STD. Let's just put some makeup on this herpes here. And there's some people who respond to their diseases. So the first one is acute, where you're like emergency ER. The covering it up would be like psychosis. And then there's some people who would like respond to their disease by like I'm dying, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to deteriorate in this, like, house and never talk to anyone for the rest of my life. That's syphilitic, right? And so there are all of these levels of how you manage your disease and your stress, and a lot of it's inherited, or the general pattern of that is inherited. So that's miasm. The general pattern of how you manage your stress and your disease attracts the types of diseases that you get. You get more lung diseases, because your lungs are weak, because you had ancestors who had tuberculosis, which weakened your lungs, right? You tend to get cancer because your family were people who overdid it so much and they forgot, what their center was, and they all had a history of cancer, right? So there's that pattern of dysfunction. Essentially, like, our belief in I don't know, like, that we have to survive at all outside of this Garden of Eden. Like, what is healing? It's this desire to get back to this place of, like, all is good and abundant, and I don't have to be worried about being sick. I'm happy and healthy, and Garden of Eden. Okay. Yes, it's so fascinating, and I want you guys to feel like it's fascinating, because for me, I'm super excited about it. It may be nerdy, I don't know, but has so much depth and capacity for understanding the human condition and our relationship with the planet. I really believe that a grassroots movement towards understanding the depth of homeopathy can do so much for healing the planet. It will be as good as the minerals. Now, maybe you love the minerals because you're kind of a mineral-y person, and animal-y people like the animals. And there's some people out there who are just plant people. You talk about the plants and you're like, plants, you're talking about plants. They just love plants. It's like homeopathy is our lens for understanding the world around us at a much more multidimensional level, and so it just becomes a whole new way of accessing our whole world. You can look out the window and you don't just see a tree, you see an upright protector of humanity. You don't just look at a daisy and think, oh, sweet, cute little flower. You're like, powerful flower to heal our trauma to our breasts and our wombs. It's really amazing. So I did decide to list here, and I'm not going to cover homeopathic remedies in this way, but I wanted to have this available to you guys. This is like organ specific homeopathy. So what I did, so in homeopathy, we have computer programs where we can enter in symptoms and it shows us all the remedies that fit those symptoms. So here I just put in symptoms that were organ specific and just saw what remedies came up, okay? So this can help. This is the more naturopathic herbal kind of approach, but when somebody comes to you and they need liver support, they tend to be kind of critical, irritable, groggy, angry, frontal headaches, like right here. Their digestion isn't good, they're bloated, there's a history of maybe jaundice, bad diet. Most people at some point in your healing need some sort of liver healing, right? Because our liver has so much toxicity it's confronted with. Issues with cramps and PMS. A lot of people have methylation issues, and so they're poor detoxers. Gallbladder pain. The liver's on our right side, the gallbladder's on our right side, so right-sided symptoms. When someone has right-sided symptoms, I often think liver, I often think masculine, because the liver is our kind of critical, masculine, doing, going, egotistical side. And the left side is often our like heart-oriented, feeling sensitive, emotional side in a way, the feminine. So I often think of liver though, if I see a lot of right-sided symptoms, or gallbladder. So I put in, in my software here, liver disease, cirrhosis, hepatitis, fatty liver, liver disorders, and up above is the plants in abbreviation, what plants are helpful for that. And I just listed them here for you. So this is just a resource. If you're like, wow, this person could really use a liver remedy. Maybe one of these will help. Because sometimes these remedies don't come up necessarily, as easily, because they're more specific and they're smaller and they're less well known. So Cardus marinus is milk thistle, Taraxacum's dandelion, Tellia is hops. I found, like, in some special needs cases where moms are the breadwinner and they are working, like I had a mom who was a dentist and she ran her own dental operation, and she was doing like dental operations, actually, surgical procedures on people all the time while pregnant. And she's just super hyper focused and intense, and like it really taxed her liver, all of this. And her child had a real messed up liver function. And all of, like, Nux vomica, Tellia, xanthoxylum, all these liver remedies ended up being really helpful for that kid. Kidney symptoms. Kidney symptoms are harder to suss out, but it could be issues with urination or UTIs. But kidney is kind of associated more with fear. Anxiety, not enough, also can be associated with adrenals. So water imbalance, coldness. And so these are some liver remedies. We know some of them from herbal medicine, like parsley is petrosalinum. And interestingly, sometimes the homeopathic materia medica is different than the herbal materia medica, but sometimes they match up. They don't always match up. I'll try and come up with an example of that, but like aloe, aloe in homeopathy is given for like explosive stools, but we use aloe herbally for burns. Underneath it all is it's for heat. It's for this kind of sulfury burning thing that makes the stools go gush out, but it's also for burns, so underneath that, it's a heat quality that the aloe is treating. But the homeopathic materia medica for aloe is different than the herbal situation for aloe. But we use the slimy stuff in aloe for the burns, but it's the skin of the aloe, the latex, the yellow stuff. If you were to eat that stuff will give you diarrhea. So, sometimes it's the different, how they use the plants. Yeah, so lung symptoms. So lung sadness, sadness is the lungs, or sensitivity and really feeling them. Grief is, a kind of sometimes this soulful kind of quality. I don't even know how to describe what I mean by soulful, but this kind of longing, sad, heartfelt. It's in our chest, right? So there's this kind of emotional quality with the lungs. Poor boundaries, weak immunity have to do with the lungs. People with weak lungs generally merge with their environment a lot more. Sighing. Everybody around me is sighing right now. I mean, part of it's the smoke, but I think everyone's just like, the world, we're in such a lung place with COVID, because COVID goes after the lungs. And I'm thinking about doing next class, or one of the classes being a COVID specific, plant specific class. NAPMIR, I just want to throw it out there. So many kids are in a NAPMIR place right now because they've been shut off, shut down. It's like they've lost all their confidence in connecting with people and their relationships, that then they're now just sad, and they lose their confidence and their sense of like capacity to be in the world. So just if you're seeing kids like that, just do a little, just get some Natmir out there. I mean, I just want to sprinkle salt on everyone. um, Natmir is a mineral, but there are some amazing lung plant remedies. Yeah, and some of them overlap, like chelidonium is a good liver and lung, and Drosera is the fly trap remedy, and it has the feeling like you're being dragged down and suffocated when the Venus flytrap takes that little insect and like sucks it into his digestion. That's kind of the feeling. It's just like I'm being dragged down and suffocated, you know, with Drosera. Painful cough. So and heart symptoms. So, heart, you know, I love Chinese medicine because Chinese medicine is so balanced and so holistic. And you think someone who's joyful is like the best state you could ever be, and someone who's like really outgoing and joyful and yada, yada, yada. You're like, that's a wonderful person, but you can overdo it. You can have excess joy, excess heart energy in Chinese medicine. That can be too much. You know, so everything in balance. We want the heart to be in balance. We want all of our systems to be in balance. My son is obsessed with Venus flytraps and carnivorous plants. Yeah. I had a woman once who came to me for a mouthful of cavities, and she described her upbringing where she grew up in the Soviet Union, and there was so much manipulation and you couldn't trust anything. And she always felt like she was being dragged down, like something was trying to kind of pull her down and eat her. And it sounded so animal, but it was a plant. And it's like a carnivorous plant, right? And the Drosera just was, what? Wait, it was, actually I gave her, wait, carnivorous plants. I gave her another remedy in that plant family, but let's see it. Okay. So heart, you know, heart could be like heart conditions in the family. But heart can be issues of love, like heartbreak, like true heartbreak. Like I've been so let down, and I love so much, and now you know my heart hurts. Or I put everything into my marriage, and my husband just wasn't there for me, and now I feel really disconnected with my heart, you know. And so so love, and heart, and romance, you know, are remedies that can deal with heart. People can truly die of heartbreak. You know, we know this. Like, you know, there was a professor at my school who accidentally did a hit and run and killed somebody. And then his son died, and he just died. He like died of heartache. Like the combination of these two things just killed him, you know? So, skin symptoms, you know, skin is the body's largest organ. You know, it plays an immune function, and there are skin remedies that help with things. And they're known in herbal medicine too. We know iris is a great herb for skin, and also in homeopathy. Thuya is from the conifer tree, and you know, it's not necessarily something we use in herbal medicine, but it's one of the most important in homeopathy for skin stuff. So here, I mean, you know, you can read across, I look up skin disease, skin disorder, eczema, psoriasis. I could probably put in like 20 more symptoms like this, but these were like the top plant remedies: Rustox, Meserium, Lycopodium, Thuya, Sarsaparilla. Yeah. Ignatia, yeah, I mean, grief could be considered heart, and it does come across in heart, and in this way it's super complicated, right? Because grief is also lungs, and then Ignatia has all these neurological symptoms, right? So it's not super cut and dry, and especially with with remedies that are like really well known in homeopathy, like Ignatia and Lycopodium and Rustox, you'll see them span all of these groups, and they can treat all of these systems of the body. Okay, musculoskeletal, bambusas, bamboo, bryonia, rustox, ruta, ledum. A lot of these are really good for Lyme disease. Okay, and then digestive. I mean, all the digestive pains that you can have. Just if someone has like their main problem is some sort of pain in their body, go into the pain and there will be a plant remedy that will help with it. It might shift the pain is the thing is like sometimes people, it's like the pain starts off in their head and then you unlock that and then the symptoms start to show up elsewhere. As I had a woman who her main thing was, this was just really recently, she had chronic mono EBV. And she had a chronically enlarged spleen. So she couldn't even move. She'd feel this like really discomfort with any motion because her spleen was like in the way. This was in another country. I almost feel like it would have been removed, you know, because it was so enlarged. And I gave her the EBV Nozode and I gave her some spleen specific remedy. And then she got all this eczema and pain, eczema across her back of her neck, and then she got pain in her legs. And that's a sign that it's healing because it's going from the most internal, more internal organs outward. It's coming out. You know, that's called Hering's Law. Very key in homeopathy is that when symptoms improve, when healing is happening, it goes from the deepest level outward. So, okay, nervous system plants. Sometimes, you know, somebody's so wound up and can't sleep and I can't find a good remedy for it. I mean, I kind of feel like Ignatia and Nux vomica, if anything, are real nervous system plants because what it is like the person experiences heartache, but they don't want to experience the heartache. They become mental. They become, I'm going to fix all of this. I'm going to go and research everything. I'm not going to be emotional. And they become really like nervous system oriented. And Ignatia and Nux vomica are there to kind of open that up and help that person experience that emotion and not numb it out. But sometimes, you know, a kid is not sleeping well and I'm like, gosh, you know, maybe there's like Passiflora or valerian or some sort of remedy like that will help them. And sometimes it does. And it's like this one remedy, I'm like, thank God, you know, helped calm their nervous system. I've just been studying the orchid remedies because there's this like book on orchids that someone put out. Very nervous system oriented remedies, very great for keyed up nervous system oversensitized kids who are too much in their head and unrooted. So immune system is kind of a global system, but there are well-known immune remedies. You know, Thuya is a well-known remedy that overall boosts your body's capacity to push out unhealthy influences. Endocrine is a global system, but there are plant remedies that have an overall hormonal component. The whole buttercup family, which is pulsatilla, staphysagria, aconite, cimicifuga, black cohosh, they're super hormonal. And the hormonal sensations of the body, there's a certain quality to the sensation that's a hormonal sensation that they help with. What is the name of the lily book? You mean the orchid book? This? Is that what you mean? Orchids in Homeopathy, pretty basic. By Lou Klein. Yeah. And, you know, it's like there's so many plant families. Unfortunately, like it's kind of like the majority of the plants in this book, it's like 1,000 pages worth of plant remedies. Most of them aren't even in our pharmacies. They're not in your average homeopathic pharmacies. Still, I'm going to teach you what's most common. I'm still going to teach you the themes here and teach you the more common and important herbs and remedies to know. I do have orchids, and I'm getting a couple more of them. And I think if you were to just look up orchid, you'd see some. But I'm looking for some more, and yeah, it's great. So Scholten says this in his book. Lycopodium, right in the beginning of the book, because it's a club moss. I'm going to teach you one plant remedy today is Lycopodium. And most of you know what Lycopodium is for. How many of you have taken Lycopodium? I could have you all raise your hand, but like I take Lycopodium still. I take Lycopodium all the time. I take Lycopodium. How do you guys know when you need Lycopodium? Or what do you take it for? What has it helped you with? Scholten says this is the polycrest of the polycrest remedies. Lycopodium is the remedy everybody knows and understands. It's so fundamental in homeopathy. It's in all of those systems: bloating, dairy, stomach issues, goat dairy, digestion. I take it when I'm reading too much and I get overly mentalized and it makes my digestion worse. You know, and I'm like bloaty and gassy, and I know, and then, so I ate some pork, and it really is heavy meat. My body does not handle it well. And the next day I was so critical. I was like, I woke up, I started criticizing Ryan for something, and I'm like, I don't feel good. I shouldn't have eaten that pork. And I'm just blah and feel yucky. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, Lycopodium. I take Lycopodium 200C, and I'm like, I feel so much better. I'm like, that pork, I think all pigs must need Lycopodium. But it is that I want to eat a lot. I want to eat fast, you know, but you're not digesting well. And, you know, it's, so the story of Lycopodium is understood on its history. Thousands of years ago, it was a large tree, and then it evolved into a small moss. So it's a little guy that thinks it's a big guy. It feels vulnerable and threatened. Its importance has been diminished. Napoleonic complex. Sometimes it's like, this is a remedy like every guy needs, because every guy wants to be bigger and like show off more than who he really is inside. I would say every guy I know would do well with Lycopodium at some point. It's not necessarily their main remedy, but this is a remedy, like, it's kind of like just to have it around. Okay. So how does their weakness show up? They don't like confrontation. So they'll criticize, they'll argue, but when it goes to talking to their boss, who they're always like complaining about, it's no way. Because like underneath it, they're nervous. They don't like the confrontation. They actually don't like competition and even games a lot because they don't want to lose. Because if they lose, it means they're a loser, you know? So it's like, it treats this like ego insecurity. Fear of sexual impotency, not liking trying new things, anxious, depressed, confidence issues. How do we know if a kid needs Lycopodium? One of the best things is a furrowed brow, a forehead with like concern. It's like they're kind of like trying to think it out. They're trying to kind of understand their world. Furrowed brow, and men too, you know, men who just walk around like this. Maybe women do that, but dudes a lot. It's so Lycopodium, especially if the man's walking around like this and like he's talking in a voice that's like deeper than what you think his real voice is. It's trying to come across more important or more threatening, you know, in a way. But kids, furrowed brow, grumpy in the morning, you know, waking up and just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, just irritable or complaining, no, you know, is a good Lycopodium one. Groggy in the morning. Gassy, can be constipation, can be all sorts of like GI issues. It's generally constipation. Sometimes when it's just constipation in kids, just a dose of Lycopodium 30C helps move it. It's not always the constipation remedy, but it can be a great constipation remedy. How do they want to seem bigger and more important? They puff up, they bloat, they eat more than they should eat. They get a big head, overly intellectual. I need to read this book, so I'm really important, so that I can talk about this book and come across as really expert, Yeah, infants with well-developed heads and scrawny bodies. My baby actually was that way. There's a lot of Lycopodium in my family. So yeah, my dad's like super Lycopodium-y, and he just has this library that he's like so into. All he wants to do is like isolate and read. He's just like, he's a real Lycopodium. and then when he has a conversation with you, it's just like a one-way kind of street conversation. No way would he confront a boss. They're great at their job because they don't want to mess up. They want to be seen as doing their job really well. They can be, grass is greener on the other side. They say Lycopodium people don't like to actually commit because that lady over there is sexy, and they're critical of their home environment or their wife, and they think that person over there is going to do better for them, right? It's like the grass is always greener on the other side. Bossy, lower voice, critical. How do we let it all out? Fart. They fart. Yeah, Lycopodium is not used in herbal medicine, but if you took a piece of Lycopodium, you threw it into a flame, it would explode. So there is this irritable, explosive quality to it. Yeah, I would say if you're just starting to treat kids, what potency to give, I would start with 30C. So my feeling with just general physical dosing, you're treating for the physical level, give a 30C. If you're seeing a kid and you're like, this kid's Lycopodium, but his mom is super Lycopodium, or his dad is super Lycopodium, like you're seeing it span, give 200C. If you're like, whoa, like this Lycopodium energy runs through the whole family, like you want to give a remedy that, really goes deep, then, you give the 200C, it helps, give a 1M. If that helps. That's a real quick dosing. Lycopodiums, right-sided issues, headache, gray hair, gray on the temples, intellectually intelligent, weak in their body. They can be fat or skinny. A lot of women who need Lycopodium, they put weight, abdominal weight, or men, just people in general, abdominal obesity is a real Lycopodium thing. Yellow discharges, right-sided and stuff. Okay. Gassy, grouchy. And a trio that's classic in homeopathy is sulfur, calcarbon, Lycopodium. I would say like your general average person or child that you're seeing might move through those 3 remedies. If you were like, I just want to know 3 remedies to prescribe, to a general group of, of kids, those 3 could be really good to know. Okay. This, I'm not teaching Paul Herskew cycle and segment. So Paul Herskew was my homeopathy teacher, and he teaches homeopathy in a cycle. And this is the idea that you have sensitivity leading to a reaction that leads to the opposite polarity. So everything in homeopathy is a cycle. A really interesting exercise you could do for yourself or somebody is you can see their symptoms and what leads to the next thing. Okay, so you have pain, what's next? Okay, then after your pain, you isolate. Okay, after you isolate, what's next? You feel guilty. Okay, so after you feel guilty, then what's next? You reach out again. And then what do? Oh, you try and work harder again, and then you fail. And so like we have these cycles in how we behave in life, in patterns. And that's what we're always trying to understand is the pattern. So he teaches these patterns. And some of them, if they're really awesome, I'm going to teach them to you. So lycopodium, there's weakness in the liver, in the kidney, in the digestion. It makes a person feel inadequate or weak. And they're anxious about it. And so they feel like they need to fill up. They need to eat. They need to read. They need to compensate. And so they puff up, they bloat up, and they can't handle it, and so they get irritable and they get angry and they have this kind of discharge, which leads them back to weakness. So that's the lycopodium cycle, and different symptoms fit into different parts of this cycle. Phew, you all right, you guys? So that's today's class. It was a lot of information. I hope you guys are okay with everything I taught. Do you guys have any questions? Because I don't want people to be left behind or feel curious or not sure. I'm going to proceed with the class by starting and teaching just different groups and families of remedies, but I'm also going to talk about some specific sets of complaints like COVID, and just to kind of start to orient you guys to understanding different issues. All right. Do you give a plant with a mineral very often? So in classical homeopathy, we're trying to choose one remedy that fits the whole person. I'm still wanting to do that. I want you guys to do that. I want you to say, wow, all of these symptoms, you see the whole picture and it all comes together like this nice package and you give the remedy. Rarely in a complex case is it quite so simple. Okay, in some complex cases of kids, I am giving, on Tuesday, Thursday, take this remedy, on Wednesday, Friday, take this remedy. And it's partly because I'm trying to kind of move the body in a direction quicker than if I just did a classical approach of one remedy at a time. The only reason I'm doing that is because I'm muscle testing that. I'm like, okay, this kid I'm feeling, what do I do when I muscle test? I look at a picture of a kid and I say, this kid is so cute. And I'm like, I love this kid. And I think, I want what's best for you. And I say, what's best for you? Tell me what's best for you. And I used to, when I started off practice, I wasn't doing this. And then I saw parents having much more success with muscle testing. So I started looking at pictures of kids online and muscle testing my arm. Like I'd be like, is this strong or weak? Strong or weak? And I would get real answers. Like I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to give, but my arm is telling me. And it just cleared up and clarified so much that I would have been trying to kind of pull my hair out and trying to figure out. There's been times in my practice, at least a couple of years before I did that, where I was still intuiting, like homeopaths still use their intuition and they're just going about it differently. They're like, oh my God, what is the right remedy? Give me a sign. And that person will say like 3 keynotes. Like, I feel fragile and I want to be stronger in my body. And then you're like flipping through, looking at Thuya and you're like, oh my God, that's this remedy. I have to give this remedy. So I think the intention is very important. Your intention when you're sitting with somebody or with yourself is like, I have no idea, but guide me. Like, I really need help here. Give me a symptom, give me a keynote. What plant family is going to help here? I want to see a picture of it. Have the person give me a picture of it, and it's really, we're accessing this like universal medicine chest through our heart, our love, our intuition, and asking something to show up for us. Does that help, Trina? Maybe that was a little. So am I giving a plant with a mineral often? In a complex case, I'm always giving probably a plant and a mineral at some point, you know, over the span of a period of time, you know, months, years. That said, there are cases where you're like, you give that awesome plant remedy and everything, you know, for an autistic child. And if you can do that sensation process with a mom and she's just, parents like it. You know, parents, if you're like, you get them to try and explain their child and they're like, you know, they're so overwhelmed mentally. And then you're like, close your eyes. Picture your kid when they're their most happy. And when you say picture your kid when they're most happy, they connect with your heart. You're feeling the love. You're like, they're jumping on a trampoline. They're so free. They're so cute. I love them, right? So you've developed that connection. They're so happy. Okay. Or, you know, because sometimes parents are disconnected. They can't even, they've like distanced themselves from their kid. Or picture your kid when you're holding them for the first time and they're looking at you and you're making eye contact. What was that like? What did you feel? You want the parent to connect to the soul of the child. And when we connect to the soul of the child, it shows us the way. And we don't get aggravations. We don't give the wrong remedies. You know, the soul wants us to see it. It wants us to give it the remedies that will help it. You know, just really feeling what it's like to be them when they're happy, and then saying, what is it like for them to feel when they're the opposite of that? They're like, oh my God, it's when I'm telling him something that he doesn't want to do and he screams, you know, then describe that, you know, describe that feeling. And then in your mind, you're like, okay, what is this? Is this a plant, animal, or a mineral? Is this a nosode? Like, what am I hearing here? What am I seeing? The key with homeopathy is we're trying to develop our second sight or whatever, our third eye. We're trying to see with our insight what is needed, you know? And so people will use words and those words will paint a picture for you know, and we want to see what that picture is. And if we're connecting in that way, like, I'm so curious what it is that needs healing here, and I want to see the picture of it. It will show itself to you because it wants to be seen. And healing is that. It's bringing conscious awareness to the unconscious. It's bringing light to the dark. And then then we resolve things. We release them. You know, and sometimes those things in the dark do not want to be seen. You know, it's something really evil or past life or karmic, and it's like, don't look at me. I don't want to, you know, I don't want anybody to know that that's there, you know. And you can like, people will, it can take maybe like years of working with someone and they're still hiding their stuff. You know, through time, I've started to figure out when people are trying to hide their stuff, and I'm like, you're hiding your stuff. I'm like, you're trying to not show me what needs to be healed here. So yay, thank you, Stephanie. Yay, the plant. So let's just end with a meditation, reconnecting to the plant that you saw, with gratitude. And then we'll close the class and we'll meet again in 2 weeks. And we'll cover a lot of these concepts as we go through as well. Okay, anything else? All right, so let's just close our eyes and take a deep breath in and out. And ground ourselves. And when we connect to the plant kingdom, we become so aware, because the plant kingdom is so sensitive and so aware and so connected. I want you to see the roots of plants touching the roots of other plants, and the root bodies of these plants connected to the whole world, the whole planet. And fungi creating these networks underneath and connected to everything. And we are connected to everything. And I want you to imagine that plant that you saw and really become it. And so you have a stem, you have leaves, you have the top, maybe a flower or branches, and you have a root system. And you're spanning the sky and the earth. You're here in the middle between sky and earth, receiving rain, receiving sun, receiving temperature, aware of the smoke, aware of what's going on, aware of the animals. And as we connect to the plant kingdom, we connect to the planet, and the planet is going through a lot. And so just coming into our heart chakra and just having some love and gratitude, showing love and gratitude. Thank you, Earth. Thank you, Gaia. Thank you, Mother Earth, for giving us these medicines, for giving us food, for healing us. And as we connect to Gaia, we can connect to ourselves, heal ourselves, help heal the planet. And imagine going outside tomorrow or anytime this week and being really aware of what's around you, spending time to look at what's under your feet, what's under that rock, touching the trees, opening our hearts to nature, having a conversation with it. And take one more deep breath in and out. I'm just grateful for each other, grateful for this class, grateful for this time. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay. All right, thanks you guys so much. And for those of you in the clinical class, I'll send you an email soon. I'll be sending out an invoice for this class. I actually do need that for my house, to pay for my house right now. We're so tapped out. But if you can't, a lot of us are tapped out, then you can give a donation as well for what works for you. Yeah, we'll just move on forward. All right, thanks you guys. Thanks so much. I can show you Slack. A lot of you guys, I've invited you onto Slack. It's just a messaging system that's different from Facebook as an alternative. Oh, sorry, it's a case-taking class. I'm doing a case-taking class every other week. So this Sunday is going to be a case-taking class where people take cases and we share them together. So yeah, sorry. All right, any other questions? Yes, I can share info on that. If the case-taking class gets big, I'm gonna split them into two though. The case-taking class, if there's enough of you that wanna take a case-taking class, I might just start another one and have two of them going, because the first class has this kind of already these cases going for it. So I'll put up a post and just see if a new group of people want to start in on a new case-taking class. Okay, lots of love. Bye, guys. Sorry about the beginning.